Later on in the second half of the show, James and Jennifer are back in court. Was there new evidence? Or will there be a new trial? It's coming a bit later. But first, how about is it illegal to film on farms? Now, I'm not in a position to give legal advice, but I do want to let everyone know the way I handle videotaping. By that I mean recording police, recording private property. I'm all for protecting private property. I'm all for helping people out here. But in this case, with people saying I want to film on a farm, then the question, I'll happily not film on farms, but filming on farms is illegal? Give me a break. We have a right to film. But banning our rights, I mean, it's legal in America it's legal in some states to film police, but in New Hampshire there's a wiretapping law. According to Dave Ridley, you got to have the consent of all parties in order to record or videotape. So let's take a look at my inspiration, John Stossel.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
A woman records what appears to be a live cow being pushed by a bulldozer.
And a bulldozer? Yes, he's alive.
She was filming from public land. The farm owner drove up and confronted her.
You cannot videotape my property from public property.
Why are you concerned about being filmed? If you have no problem, you think this is a legitimate business?
It is a legitimate business.
Utah prosecutors charged the woman with agricultural operation interference.
Am I free to leave or am I being detained?
You're being detained.
But she was on public land. They dropped the charges several months later. But what if she'd sneaked onto a farm to record what she considered animal abuse? More than 100 such investigations have been done. Activists pose as farm workers and secretly record the way animals are treated.
An animal rights group released this undercover video of the dairy farm. It shows workers hitting, kicking, and throwing young calves. We are not showing the most disturbing parts of the video.
Farmers upset about these recordings are persuading politicians to
essentially outlaw these undercover investigations.
The controversial ag-gag law.
The sixth state to pass an ag-gag law.
There are activists stalking farms to try to capture something that the public doesn't understand.
Kay Johnson Smith speaks for a farm group that supports the ag-gag laws, though they don't call them that.
We would call it farm protection. Farm protection.
What about everybody else? Why do you get special protection?
The agricultural community is the only business community that this sort of tactic is really being used on right now.
I'm an investigative reporter. I can't do my job if there are laws that prevent me from showing things. Nobody believes it if you don't see it.
These activist groups want to eliminate all of animal agriculture.
Brittany, you're holding a dead body.
This group live streams its protests on Facebook.
You saw a dumpster with hundreds of dead birds?
Many of the activists stormed into the farm. Some stole some of the baby ducklings.
We were just able to rescue almost 30 baby ducks.
Others chained themselves to the entrance of the farm.
Later, the activists released this video of the 30 stolen ducklings, adding music and showing the birds running around, apparently happy. They stole those ducks after seeing this earlier undercover video of injured ducks at the farm.
Mercy for Animals says their undercover investigations have led to criminal charges.
Ag-gag laws often prevent such investigations, which is why farm states pass them.
A bill making it illegal to apply for a job in a farming operation under false pretenses.
But what about free speech?
Ag-gag laws chill speech.
Lawyer Amanda Howell speaks for the Animal Legal Defense Fund, a group that says ag-gag laws are unconstitutional. And they did get several states' laws struck down. Iowa then just passed a new law.
Ag-gag 2.0, a bipartisan bill trying again to stop people from lying to get onto farms.
These groups are exposing issues that are happening.
If they really cared about animals, they would stop it right then. Instead, they go weeks and months without reporting anything to the farm owners.
That's true. This investigation went on for months. Agricultural groups are now pushing laws that would force activists to report abuse quickly. Why don't they?
They want to make their movie. They want to make their sensational video.
It's because they care about the animals that they want to show that that's something that happens every day on these farms.
Consistent, constant abuse.
A company can say, this is a one-off. This is not just discrete actors. This is company policy.
They say they don't want to just correct the abuse on that farm. They want to change all farming practices.
What they really want is to stop people from eating meat, milk, and eggs.
Do you want people to stop eating meat?
I want people to act in their conscience.
But you didn't really answer the question. Do you want people to stop eating meat? Or eggs?
I think that, again, are we asking me personally, or are we asking the Animal Legal Defense Fund?
She never did give a direct answer.
Workers at the turkey farm abusing the birds.
Animal rights activists have exposed things that need exposing.
Walmart now taking a stand when it comes to the treatment of farm-raised animals.
How else would you have made these changes without sneaking into your farm?
Well, that's to say that farmers can't be trusted, and I think that
Apparently in the past, some could not.
There are bad apples in every industry. However, I would say 99.9% of farmers in America, they do the right thing every single day. Farming isn't always pretty.
People have some right to privacy, no?
I think we should all be worried when corporations are supporting laws that impinge our right to free speech.
We should worry. Whatever you think of the activists, and I have problems with many of them, government shouldn't pass special laws that prevent people from revealing what's true.
And that's true. That's very true. But what about filming the police? When we come back, Dave Ridley is going to tell us some tips that might help you. That might help you next time you decide to run into a cop with a case involved over 10 years ago. Please don't go away. I'm not in a position to give legal advice on this show, but I do want to let everyone know about the way I handle videotaping. And if you're just joining us, we're talking about videotaping on public property, but when it comes to ag-gag laws. Now, we just heard about those ag-gag laws, Agricultural Act thing about people filming on farms, but the charges were dropped. Now we're going to take you into New Hampshire, where there was a wiretapping law put in place. So what do you do next time you confront the police and you want to videotape it? Here's Dave Ridley.
I'm not in a position to give legal advice, but I do want to let all of you know a little bit about the way I handle videotaping. By that I mean the way I handle video and audio recording, police, bureaucrats, people who don't want to be video audio recorded, even though they're in a public place. It's a dicey situation in New Hampshire because we have a wiretapping law here that says you've got to have the consent of all parties in order to record audio.
How are you? I'm videotaping you and audio recording at this time.
When a police officer walks up to me and I've got my camera, I feel like I have several options. The most dangerous option, and the one I never choose, is to surreptitiously, secretly record the police. Now, I don't know of any cases out on the sidewalks and streets where a person's been arrested for doing this, but some people interpret the wiretapping law as forbidding it. It would be conceivably a misdemeanor to do this. The second option, slightly less dangerous legally, is to have the camera out, inform the police that you're audio recording them, and then see how they respond. Oftentimes they'll tell you to turn off the camera, and again, if I'm using this, option number 2, I will refuse to comply with the order to turn off the camera. But I do that very openly and as respectfully as I can.
I'm asking you to turn the camera off, sir. Are you willing to comply?
I'm not willing to turn the camera off. I am willing to back up.
Are you willing to leave, sir?
Yes.
Okay. I'm asking you to leave. Is that good enough?
This is only moderately dangerous, and I only know of one instance in which a person has been arrested for doing this. It was Cooper Travis over in Candia, a Free Stater. This happened about a month ago in November '08. The incident appears to have completely blown up in the police faces. Authorities told Cooper they would arrest him if he didn't stop audio taping. They hauled him off in a squad car and never charged him with anything, released him within a couple of hours. The police chief in Candia, New Hampshire, to his credit, ended up apologizing to the family. I've spoken to an attorney about this type of approach, this type of recording, and she informs me that no, they don't really have grounds to arrest you on wiretapping charges when you do this, openly recording them in a public place. But they can arrest you for, disorderly conduct. She could seem to consider it a pretty good hill to die on, and that seemed to be the case for Cooper. However, my read on that statute and other people's read on that statute is a little more conservative and a little more cautious in that it could be interpreted, I think, to mean that you could be arrested even if you openly inform them. Even if you're out on public property, you could be arrested under the wiretapping law. By my read on the law, again, an attorney probably knows more than I do, but just looking at the text, I have to look at option number 2, the open recording, the telling them you're audio recording and refusing to give up. I have to look at that as civil disobedience. And the reason I inform police that I'm doing it is not so much to conform with the law as it is to make sure that I'm deeply in civil disobedience mode. Because civil disobedience is not something you do surreptitiously. You're not hiding what you do. You do it out in the open. So, again, my reason for informing the police that I'm recording is, yes, it could put you in a better position in terms of the law, but the most important reason is simply to make sure that you are being openly civilly disobedient. Now, there's a third option. I'll call it option number 3, which is safer than options 1 or 2. What you can do is you can get out your camera when you see the police coming or when you want to talk to the bureaucrats or whatnot. When they tell you to turn the camera off, you've got that on camera, but you comply with the order. Okay, I am turning off the camera under protest or whatever. Now, this way you miss whatever may happen afterwards. But you got video of them telling you to shut off the camera, telling the whole world they're afraid of the world seeing what they're doing. Roger Grant used this approach at the famous open carry incident outside Murphy's Tap Room in Manchester. The police got some negative reaction because they had told him to turn off the camera. Well, Roger Grant got no negative reaction because he complied. Now, there's also option 4, which is probably the most cop-friendly option of all of these, and that is simply to have your camera ready, at your side, in your hand, ready to turn it on if things start to go bad and you start to get desperate. I've used this option once when police came up to my vehicle, and it was probably the right thing to do under the circumstances. There have also been occasions where I whipped the camera out and considered turning it on, but kind of held off because I didn't want to inflame the situation. Well, in the second case, I wish that I had been rolling. So it's dicey, but my advice is if you're rolling the camera, be very upfront and open about it at least. And look at it as a potential act of civil disobedience for which you could go to jail. Now, if you look at the video description for this clip, should be over there, then you will see a link to some writing that I've done on this subject, which will kind of lay everything out for you in a manner that you can come back to. It makes me very nervous that there are, a lot of people running around there with cameras that don't really understand what they're getting into in terms of the wiretapping law. So I just want to make you aware of the dangers, as many people as possible aware of the dangers. That way you can make an informed decision. This is Dave Ridley signing off. from New Hampshire for RidleyReport.com this December 8th, 2008.
Just put a little message on there. So where can you film and where you cannot film? I'm still writing it down while you were listening, but I'm going to finish up and we'll tell you about that when we return. So if you're just joining us, we're looking at people who just film the police. And a lot of other instances too. We looked at farms and now we've heard from Dave Ridley. But we haven't talked about where, when, where, and who. The 3 W's. Who, what, when, like the 3 W's. So what I've done before the break is I've written down some ideas. That way when you watch this you can probably understand. You like where you can public sidewalks, your own house, places where they allow recording devices outside the property, on the sidewalk, if the police are cool with it. Where not to film: private property, stores, supermarkets, restaurants, schools, and police stations, because the police can look at it as a gun. And who not to film: the police, the employees, the managers, the politicians, teachers and staff, and what everyone does, basically people who just don't want to be filmed or on YouTube. So those are some ideas for you. So this is just an idea for you next time that you decide to film police. And if you do, listen to these tips from Dave Ridley. And something he forgot to mention is a good thing to have a little message under your camera lens that says, I'm audio taping, in case you forget to tell people. Now, when I do my shows outside, I never put up a sign that says, you're being recorded or you're being videotaped. When I first decided to do this outside, this show outside, I never thought about doing it from out there, but the state of New Hampshire has a wiretapping law, but we wouldn't have time to look into times where we broke that wiretapping law, but we're not going to have time. But we do have time for Jennifer and James. I can say the parents because they're charged, because this is the case that I love talking about to you guys. I love talking about this case. You know why? Because it just gets underneath my skin. So what we're hearing about right now...
Eurovision song.
Sorry. There's now a new word. There's now a new word from court. There's now a new word tonight. There was a pre-trial hearing. It's set for James, the suspected shooter, on Tuesday. This happened on Tuesday. But here is... Here is what the attorneys so here, let me bring you the very latest. Take a look.
Also making headlines this afternoon, the parents of the accused Oxford High School shooter appeared in court for a pre-trial hearing. Now, the two were bound over on manslaughter charges back in February. Local 4 defender Sean Lay has a look at what happened in court today.
Ethan Crumley's parents back in court today. The issue at hand incredibly important to this case. This is the first time we've seen the parents of accused Oxford school shooter Ethan Crumley since their long and explosive preliminary hearing, where a judge found that there's enough evidence to send the parents to trial on charges of involuntary manslaughter. Prosecutors argue that the parents of Ethan Crumley should be held accountable for allegedly providing Crumley with the handgun used in the shooting, for allegedly ignoring warning signs that their son was in crisis and calling out for his parents' help. However, James and Jennifer Crumley each is represented by an attorney, and both attorneys are with the same firm. Prosecutors asking a judge today to take a look at that issue, saying there could be a conflict of interest between the two lawyers once this gets to trial, and there's different evidence presented against Jennifer Crumley and different evidence presented against James Crumley. The judge agreeing, saying she wants to avoid any chance of a mistrial. She's sending two different attorneys to meet separately with the Crumleys to explain to them all the conflicts that could come up.
The purpose of independent counsel will be for the limited purpose of advising each defendant in the matter with regard to joint representation and the potential for conflicts of interest.
Bottom line, if the Crumleys want to move forward with the lawyers that they have, prosecutors say they do not want them to have the ability to appeal any conviction citing conflict of interest with the lawyers that they do have, essentially getting a do-over in their case. In Oakland County, Sean Lake, Local 4.
And tomorrow on the broadcast, we'll play you that trial. But now there's new testimony. There's new evidence in the Bob Saget case. Now, you guys don't remember we talked about this Bob Saget case to where he hit his head. But now, the police body cam footage just released now shows what happened. Let's take a look.
It's the just-released police body cam of the moments officers approach Bob Saget's door at the Ritz-Carlton in Orlando. They first knocked on the wrong door, 961. Then they go to Saget's room, 962. As they open the door, the camera goes to black. We know what they found inside, the comedian dead in his bed. And this is his room as they found it that morning, January 9th. The police photos also just released. In the bathroom, towels lie in the tub, which may indicate he had a shower before he went to bed. Was this where he fell and banged his head? The floor, hard, potentially slippery marble tiles. His deodorant and hairbrush on a shelf above the sink. His bed still has the eerie impression of his body, the pillow, an indentation where his head lay. Notice, there is no visible blood. The minibar appears untouched. On the nightstand, his cell phone and iPad are charging. There's his glasses, a tube of chapstick, and his AirPods. Also, 2 bottles of water. His clothes are hung neatly in the closet. On the floor, his shoes. In the wastebasket, an N95 mask. The room safe, open, and empty. And this is his visitor's badge for the resort where he performed his final gig. The living room appears neat, the chairs and cushions undisturbed. No indication of a struggle. Police say they have ruled out foul play.
That's because of that. What we know so far, here's what we know so far. We know so far that he didn't hit his head. He hit his head, but we don't know where. It could be in the bathroom. It could be on the bed. Remember, the bed is like bouncing, like memory foam here, and we still don't know whether it was autopsy. We know now there was no blood, but what we still don't know is where did he hit? Like the JonBenet Ramsey case, we don't know who killed JonBenet Ramsey. Just like in this case here, we still don't know where he hit his head. We know it was in a hotel, but we don't know where it was. Maybe he could have hit his head on the cabinet, on the table here, or he could have hit his head on the door. We don't know, but what we do know is that there was no blood. We'll keep looking into this case and bring your future episode. So just to recap I told you earlier about the Ethan Crumley case. Karen McDonald, the prosecutor, has asked media not to say his name. But if you just heard earlier, he said his name because he's now charged as an adult. And now, the parents are charged with involuntary manslaughter. The pretrial hearing was yesterday. And if convicted, they could spend life in jail. And the rest of the people are trying their hardest to make sure he goes to juvie. We don't know if it will happen, but someday soon, he might go to juvie. And a lot of people can change their minds about this. It's O.J. Simpson all over again. I'm not comparing Ethan Crumley to O.J. Simpson. I mean, O.J. Simpson was found not guilty. He didn't kill his wife. But you might argue me saying, well, he did kill his wife. I mean, look at all the evidence. I wasn't born in 95. I was born in 97. Case happened in 94. I wasn't born then. 95. I wasn't born then. 96. I wasn't born then. 97. I was born a month later. We don't know. I don't know personally. But answers are coming, and we'll give you those answers. I'll be back in a moment. Do you know anything about surviving a plane crash? We're coming up tomorrow night, which is today. We're going to tell you how to survive a plane crash. That's on the second half tomorrow night. And then tomorrow, a look at the pre-trial of James and Jennifer Crumley. And you got to hear what the judge has to say. We'll tell you about that tomorrow. That's it. That completes the second half of Give Me a Break Tuesday, going to Wednesday. See you again tomorrow for Give Me a Break Wednesday. Follow us here, Give Me a Break on YouTube. Good night, everyone.